Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are jumping into, well, a really significant chapter from Jeremiah chapter 50. This one's a biggie. It lays out this massive prophecy about Babylon, the superpower of its day.
Absolutely. It's a chapter focused squarely on judgment, but also, interestingly, on hope.
Right. We're going to explore the verdict against Babylon and what the text holds out for Israel and Judah in contrast. Expect some pretty dramatic stuff. Empires falling, exiles returning, divine justice playing out. It's intense.
And it kicks off immediately, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No messing around. There's this command right at the start.
Yeah, it's like shout it from the rooftops, announce and proclaim among the nations, lift up a banner, keep nothing back. Feels really urgent.
It does. And the headline news,
Mm-hmm.
it's blunt. Babylon will be captured. But it goes further.
How so?
It says Bel will be put to shame, Marduk filled with terror. These are major Babylonian gods. So the text isn't just predicting, a military loss.
Okay. It's striking at their whole system, their gods being shamed.
Exactly. It portrays this as a defeat that rocks their spiritual foundations. Their idols, their images, all put to shame, filled with terror. It's a profound statement.
So it frames the conflict on a higher plane than just human armies. And where does this destructive force come from, according to the text?
It points north. A nation from the north will attack her. Later it calls it an alliance of great nations from the land of the north.
The North, often a source of trouble in these ancient prophecies, right?
Often, yeah. And this northern force isn't depicted as just any army. They're described as efficient, relentless.
Like professional soldiers.
Kind of. Their arrows will be like skilled warriors who do not return empty-handed. They take up positions, they capture. It sounds very targeted.
And the result for Babylon is total wipeout.
That's the picture painted. No one will live in it. Both men and animals will flee away. Complete desolation.
It's empty. Wow.
A land utterly abandoned. The scale is meant to feel absolute.
Okay, so the prophecy sets the stage. Babylon, the northern attackers, the devastating outcome. But why? Why this judgment? The text seems pretty explicit about Babylon's behavior.
Oh, it is. The language is quite harsh. It accuses Babylon, because you rejoice and are glad, you who pillage my inheritance.
Pillaging God's inheritance. That's referring to Israel and Judah.
Precisely. That's the context here. The text sees Babylon's actions against God's people not just as conquest, but as gleeful, arrogant plundering. Like they're celebrating it, frolic like a heifer threshing grain and neigh like stallions.
So it's not just what they did, but how they did it, their attitude.
Exactly. The text frames it as sinning against the Lord, opposing the Lord. Even though elsewhere the text acknowledges Israel's own sin led to the exile, Babylon is held responsible for its own actions, and crucially, its arrogance in carrying them out. They weren't just instruments, they seemed to revel in it.
That's a key distinction. They defied God even while potentially being used by circumstances related to God's judgment on Israel. And this arrogance is called out directly.
Yes, very directly. See, I am against you, O arrogant one, declares the Lord. This defiance, this arrogance against the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, is presented as the fundamental reason for the vengeance coming their way.
Okay, so that brings us to the judgment itself. How is it actually carried out? The description sounds pretty intense.
It's portrayed as all out. The command to the attackers is, take up your positions around Babylon, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she has sinned against the Lord. No holding back.
Relentless.
Completely. Shout against her on every side. She surrenders, her towers fall, her walls are torn down, and it connects the punishment directly to the crime. Since this is the vengeance of the Lord, take vengeance on her. Do to her as she has done to others. That principle of measure for measure.
Eye for an eye on a massive scale. And it's not just the military structures, right? The prophecy hits other areas too.
Absolutely. It talks about crippling their economy. Cut off from Babylon the sower, and the reaper with his sickle at harvest.
So hitting their food supply, their basic ability to function.
Exactly. It suggests a total societal breakdown. And then there's this specific sword mentioned.
A sword against different groups.
Yeah, it's symbolic of judgment or destruction, targeting specific pillars of their society. A sword against officials, against the wise men who become fools, their wisdom failing them.
So leaders and thinkers neutralized.
Right. A sword against their warriors, they'll be terrified. Against their military might, horses, chariots. Even against the foreigners living among them, they'll become like women. Basically lose their strength or resolve.
And their wealth.
Their treasures will be plundered. It's a systematic dismantling of their power structure. Leadership, wisdom, military, economy, wealth. It even names specific regions. Marathaim and Pekod, commanding total destruction there too. Do everything I have commanded you. Very thorough.
It really paints a picture of complete collapse. You can almost hear it.
The text actually emphasizes that sound. The noise of battle is in the land, the noise of great destruction. And the impact isn't just local.
It ripples outwards.
Yeah. At the sound of Babylon's capture, the earth will tremble. Its cry will resound among the nations. Babylon, which the text elsewhere calls the hammer of the whole earth, is now the one being shattered.
A complete reversal. So after all this destruction, what's the final picture? What's left of Babylon according to this prophecy?
Utter permanent desolation. That's the core message. She will be the least of the nations. A wilderness, a dry land, a desert.
Not just defeated, but erased almost.
That's the feeling. Because of the Lord's anger, she will not be inhabited, but will be completely desolate. Anyone passing by will be horrified, will scoff at her wounds. The desolation is meant to be a lasting spectacle.
And even nature itself seems affected.
Yes, a drought on her waters. They will dry up. It links this ecological ruin to her spiritual state. For it is a land of idols, idols that will go mad with terror. That's like the land itself is cursed, along with the idols.
And no people will live there again.
That's what it said. Instead, desert creatures and hyenas will live there, and there the owl will dwell. Spooky imagery.
Definitely. Like a ghost town, but forever.
And it drives the point home with a powerful comparison. It will never again be inhabited or lived in from generation to generation. And then it says,
What?
as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, along with their neighboring towns, so no one will live there, no man will dwell in it.
Wow. Invoking Sodom and Gomorrah, that's about as final as it gets in biblical terms, isn't it?
It really is. It signifies a divine judgment that is total, permanent, irreversible. No chance of rebuilding or return.
Okay, so that's the incredibly bleak picture for Babylon. Total ruin. But then the chapter shifts gears quite dramatically, doesn't it? It turns to Israel and Judah.
It does. You get this phrase, in those days, at that time, which signals a change. And first, it acknowledges their current state, their suffering,
How does it describe them?
as lost sheep, led astray by their own shepherds, wandering, having forgotten their resting place. They're depicted as vulnerable, a scattered flock that lions have chased away.
Lions, referring to their conquerors.
Explicitly, it names the king of Assyria as the first to devour them, and then Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, as the last to crush his bones. It acknowledges the deep historical trauma they've endured.
So it validates their suffering, but then it promises something completely different from Babylon's fate.
Entirely opposite. Instead of desolation, there's restoration. They won't be scattered. They will come together and go in tears to seek the Lord their God.
So a spiritual return as well as physical.
Yes, a deep turning back. They'll ask the way to Zion, their spiritual home, and set their faces toward it. And the promise is they will bind themselves to the Lord in an everlasting covenant that will not be forgotten.
An unbreakable connection rebuilt.
Exactly. And this includes return to the land itself, depicted in terms of prosperity.
Right, I remember seeing that.
I will bring Israel back to his own pasture. He will graze on Carmel and Bashan. His appetite will be satisfied on the hills of Ephraim and Gilead. These are all famously fertile areas. It's not just survival, it's abundance, satisfaction.
A stark contrast to Babylon's drought and desert. But maybe the most striking difference is how the text deals with their past wrongdoing, right? Compared to Babylon's unforgiven sin.
This is, I think, one of the most radical parts of the chapter. For Babylon, sin leads to inescapable destruction. But for Israel and Judah, listen to this. In those days, at that time, search will be made for Israel's guilt, but there will be none. And for the sins of Judah, but none will be found.
None found, even though the text acknowledges they sinned.
None found. Why? For I will forgive the remnant I spare. It's this incredible promise of complete, absolute forgiveness. Their guilt, their sin, gone, wiped clean. It's a staggering contrast to Babylon's fate being sealed by its arrogance and sin.
That's profound, forgiveness on that scale. And who makes this happen?
The text identifies a specific agent, yet their Redeemer is strong. The Lord Almighty is his name. This Redeemer figure is portrayed as powerful, active. He will vigorously defend their cause and the outcome, so that he may bring rest to their land, but unrest to those who live in Babylon. The two fates are directly linked. Israel's restoration and rest are simultaneous with Babylon's judgment and unrest, all driven by this strong Redeemer.
Okay, so taking all this in, this deep dive into Jeremiah 50, it's a lot. You've got this incredibly detailed prophecy of an empire's downfall, punishment for arrogance and oppression, leading to, well, permanent ruin.
Total desolation, yeah.
And right alongside it, this equally dramatic promise of hope, return, and just radical forgiveness for the people they oppressed, even acknowledging their own past faults. What really jumps out at you from this juxtaposition?
Well, it's this intense portrayal of divine accountability, isn't it?
Yeah.
On one hand, you have what the text presents as the inevitable consequence of empire-level arrogance and oppression, complete destruction. Babylon gets what it deserves, basically. But then for the oppressed, even though they aren't painted as perfect themselves, there's this path to complete restoration through forgiveness. It forces you to think about how this text views power, justice, divine judgment, and perhaps most strikingly, mercy. How can both total destruction and total forgiveness exist side by side in the same divine plan described here?
Yeah, it's a powerful tension. So we've traced the announcement of Babylon's fall, the reasons rooted in pride and sin against God's people, the graphic nature of the judgment, the arrows, the sword, the broken economy, the terrifying sounds leading to that final chilling image of desolation like Sodom.
A really grim picture.
And then we saw the pivot, Israel and Judah, the lost sheep, being sought out, brought back together, returning spiritually and physically, their sins completely forgiven through the action of their powerful Redeemer.
A complete turnaround.
So as a final thought for you listening, mull over that stark contrast presented here. Consider the absolute permanent end prophesied for Babylon, a wasteland, its guilt remembered forever in its ruin.
Compared with Israel and Judah, whose guilt is actively searched for but declared gone, forgiven, paving the way for an everlasting covenant and restoration. What might this deliberate, stark difference in outcomes be suggesting about the ultimate message of this prophecy regarding divine justice and divine mercy? It's quite something to ponder.